My name is Kent Jordan. I'm the woodwind and flute teacher here, and I've been here for 16 years. The Louis Armstrong Jazz Camp is important because I think it gives young kids another viewpoint of music. And that's very important. As you know, there's a lot of kids in New Orleans who really only participate in marching bands. They participate, and some of them in concert bands, which are good. But for the most part, they really don't understand that music education can be formalized in a lot of different ways. And I think the beauty of the jazz camp is that our structure has evolved to the point where we can, like my father said this morning, have kids deal with fundamentals. They have to deal with sight reading. They have to deal with the structure of music. And they can do that in the jazz context because usually a lot of young kids, for instance, my development, that happened in a classical setting because classical music evolved to the point where you have to have certain things that you have to know in order to play that music, without a doubt, right? Certain fundamentals that you have to have. And for some strange reason, I think a lot of people felt like jazz, you didn't have to establish those fundamentals. And I think the beauty of the Louis Armstrong Jazz Camp is that we very much into fundamentals, we're into the history of the music, as well as reading, and as well as really playing in ensembles, different ensembles. So that's the reason why we sound great. That's the reason why when the instructors leave here, they say, man, this is a great camp, because we really cover all of from the basics to, great ensemble playing, I think. That's a great question, actually. That's an interesting question. In an ensemble, what you're really trying to do is for the kids to lose their individuality to the point that they can gel as one. In other words, you don't want to have 20 people playing in an ensemble and you pass in the room or you're listening and you say, wow, that sounds like 20 different people playing versus one entity. Now, what I mean by that is that you're going to have the trumpets, you're going to have the trombones, you're going to have the saxophones, you're going to have the rhythm section. And they all may be playing their individual parts, but it has to come together so that it sounds like one, not one person, because I think that's the wrong idea, but it sounds like one entity. It's balanced, you have great intonation, everybody understands that not only their part is important to play, but they actually know what the saxophones are going to be playing, or what the trumpets are playing. You're just not involved in your part to the point where you're saying, well, I played my part right, and not listening to everybody else. So to me, the beauty of an ensemble is when you have that balance, when you have great intonation, great phrasing, everybody's on the same page, and it just sounds like one motion, even though it may be 20 people playing or it may be 5 people playing, but it's one direction. Everybody's trying to play towards something. To me, the most important word for any musician, or for anybody studying anything, is one word, and that's curiosity. If a young student doesn't have curiosity, and what I mean by that, not necessarily bouncing from room to room trying to see what the piano students are doing or what the woodwind students are doing or what the singers are doing, but just have a natural curiosity for your instrument and for the music. Because as you know here, we play a wide variety of repertoire. I mean, we may be playing something from Louis Armstrong to Mary Lou Williams to Keith Jarrett to Kid Jordan to Cannonball Adderley. So our repertoire is very varied, and I think that's great. But at the same time, what I want students to leave here with is a sense of curiosity, that their natural curiosity has evolved to the point where they can, on their own, say, okay, well, now I'm going to go check out Count Basie's orchestra, or listen to some more Duke Ellington's music, or listen to Charlie Parker, listen to John Coltrane, or just listen, period, to what they have a natural curiosity for. Because it has to extend past the camp, because as great as the camp is, this only lasts for 3 weeks. So when those kids come back, what's going to make them great is if they've had to go out and listen to some more music past what we've given them. So when they come back, they can say, yeah, well, I see what you mean, Mr. Jordan, that I did go back and check out some more Duke Ellington or some Count Basie or some more Louis Armstrong or whomever we suggest that they listen to. Well, music, period, requires discipline. And as you know, I think the beauty of the camp is over the years, that's just in our DNA. It's in our genetics at this point. You know, we've always had kids who have come with something different in mind and said that, well, you know, I'm just going to play all day and do different things. And right away, you know, kids are very smart. They're intuitive. And they know when they're in a program that requires a certain sense of discipline. Um, Discipline is something that you have to actually strive for. And the great thing about our situation is that it's so structured to the point where you just can't bounce around. You know, when you know your ensemble is at a certain point in time, when you know that your private lesson or your ensemble is going to meet at a certain time, then those things, the timing of it naturally brings a certain amount of discipline anyway. But then the next thing that happens is if you're going to participate in that ensemble, you know, if you don't know your part, you're going to have to go home and practice, or you're not going to play. If you don't know the music, you're not going to play. So I think, you know, not only do we have the natural discipline that will evolve if a student is new to the program, but because we've been around for 16 years, our discipline that's been in our DNA for these 16 years is, you'll find it. Let's just put it like that. Um, Development is a how can I say it? It could be a curse and a blessing at the same time. And what I mean by that is there are certain kids who are just naturally developed. In other words, a kid may come here and he has a natural sense of how to play by ear. Somebody else may come here and he can read music very well, but his ear is not as developed. So what happens, I think, for a young student is you find your weaknesses. And that sounds kind of strange in a way, but you actually do find your weaknesses. And so in other words, if you're in a situation and all of a sudden we say, okay, improvise. You say, well, I don't know what to do, right? And that happens a lot. And so what happens is you have to learn how to improvise. Now, the thing is whether or not you want to really learn how to do that, we have the instructors, we have the tools, we have the materials, and we have, I think, for lack of a better word, the love to show you how to get to that if you want to do that. If you want to learn how to read music, if you want to discover more about what you're trying to do, we can help you with that natural development. But then at the same time, the thing that kids aren't really aware of is that development has to be nurtured. So, you know, at one point you may be really talented in one area, but you have to work on those other areas. So the thing that's great about the camp is I think that it not only showcases kids' strengths, but we also try to show them in a very subtle way, let's just say their deficiencies, so that they can become better musicians. Louis Armstrong, I think, for a lot of people, is an enigma. You know, he's this type of figure that let's just say it like this: you know his name, but if you've ever been to his house, I mean, and for me, the interesting thing about it was when I went to his house because I knew his music, I knew of him. I've seen it on videos and seen him perform, and not live, but on TV in various contexts. And when I went to his house just to see how meticulous he was about taping his guests that came to his house, recording his practices, recording music that you would never think that he would listen to, from Tchaikovsky to Beethoven to Mozart, and then have all this stuff on a reel and have it labeled and the dates. You know, you would never think that, you know, that somebody would be that meticulous about his, I guess, his, not even, I think meticulous is the wrong word. It's just have a certain amount of awareness that this is something I have to do because I want to go back to such and such a date and let me see what I was listening to. And that requires a lot of time and a lot of patience because I don't know anybody would document, I mean, to my knowledge, who has, you know, documented their life like that. And so I think Louis Armstrong was a really interesting man because we all have to learn a certain way. And that was part of his learning process. Because no matter, in other words, some people like to use this word kind of loosely, like genius, which he was probably, and a great musician, which we know he was. But the fact of the matter is that he worked at his genius. He worked at his craft. This wasn't something that was just anointed. You know, it just didn't fall from the sky. And whenever you hear a great musician, whether it's Louis Armstrong or Beethoven or Mozart, you know, sometimes I think we fall in love with the mythology. But Pops was worked. Not only did he work his band, because he worked quite a bit, but he also worked as a musician. And so I think that's sort of the beauty of our camp, is that we make these kids work for 3 weeks. And I'm sure if Louis Armstrong could come back and check us out, he'd probably be really proud, because he didn't have that opportunity. You know, somebody telling you, man, hold your trumpet a certain way, or you phrase like this, or listen to this and listen to that. He had to discover that pretty much on his own. You know, and so the camp, I think, is a reflection in a very subtle way of probably everything that he did up to that point, you know, when he passed away. And so you'll say, yes, this is what these kids need, because there's nothing like being in an environment where somebody is really giving you everything that you need. Well, Miss Jackie, you the one. A lot of people don't know how hard this is to do. You know, they just think that you just pop up every summer, and all of a sudden this camp happens miraculously, just like Louis Armstrong. You know, you just think he picks up his horn, he's ready for his gig. You know, they don't know all of the inner workings of what it really takes to perform or to put together a camp. And so I think if it's just not the music, but we have a great staff. You know, not only you, but you know the staff of people that you surround yourself with that's been here for 16 years, and so that's all a part of it as well. You know, a camp is a reflection of its weakest link, and I think over the 16 years that we've been here, we've learned a lot, and we're still learning some things. You know, and we're growing. And, we just need somebody to give us $10 million so we can do this on a bigger level every year. Yeah, we need to tell BP, instead of cleaning up that oil. Like, what did they say in the wind? Slide me some oil? Let's slide us some dollars.